Welcome to the Daily MBA, where business wisdom is served fresh and fast, straight from one of the top MBA programs in the world. I'll give you summaries of my lectures and readings, as well as the most important insights gained from an MBA, so you can apply all of this knowledge in every business. Let's get started. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about how do we find equilibrium in the economy. And so this is going to sound like a very broad thing, but hopefully at the end of the episode, it's very easy to understand for you. So for finding equilibrium in the entire economy, we're going to understand that we have to mix two models. First, the goods market, and then the financial market. But we're going to separate them into two models. And so first part of the episode, we're going to dedicate it to understanding all of the elements in the goods market. So the goods market, as I explained in one of my first episodes, is going to be everything related to C plus G plus I plus exports minus imports. And so all of this were the factors that affected GDP. So let's take a deeper dive into seeing each one of these factors. First, when we look at the C, this C stands for consumption. And so the consumption model is going to be stating that when your disposable income goes up, consumption will go up. And if this sounds too elaborate, if we bring it down to non-economic terms, basically means if you earn more, you spend more, which obviously, it's a fact. So the thing is that here we're talking about disposable income. So disposable income is the one that you have after taxes. So in this model, we're kind of considering the effect that taxes have, because if taxes are exogenous, so they are a fixed amount that are not related to your income, if the output in the economy goes up by 1, your income goes up by 1, and your consumption is going to go up by a factor that's going to be your propensity to consume. So it may be a percentage, it may be 30%, maybe that you're consuming of your current income, it may be 20%, it may be 90% or over 100%, depends on everyone's consumption patterns. But what we want to show here would be the original equation that I'm going to be sharing it while I'm talking. It includes a factor that's going to determine the propensity that you have for consumption. But if taxes are endogenous, and let's say you have to pay a tax rate that is going to be depending on your income, let's assume this tax rate is 30%, when output goes up by 1, your disposable income wouldn't go up by 1. It would go up by 0.7 because you just paid 30% to the government. And then your consumption would only go up by having that 0.7 multiplied by your propensity to consume. So this is going to be how much you're consuming after you paid your taxes. So hopefully this is very intuitive because it's what we're doing in our everyday lives. So this is going to be the consumption model. Now, the second letter that we are going to look at is the I, which is the investment model. And this I is going to be related to interest rates. So as interest rates rise, the investments in the economy are going to decrease. And why is this? Intuitively, again, let's put it in non-economic terms. When interest rates are high, it's hard to get loans because you're going to get, like right now, very high rates. So nobody really wants to start doing an investment or buying a house or starting to get education because it's going to be very hard to pay a loan afterwards. And that's the reason why investments usually go down after interest rates go up. So interest rate is usually determined in our models by an R, and this represents the cost to borrow or the opportunity cost to invest. So even if you don't have to get a loan to do something, your opportunity cost might be higher. So that's why R is so important. And then the other thing that you should consider is that savings equals investments, as I showed you at the beginning. So if investment falls due to the increases in the interest rates, savings will also decrease that same amount. And maybe you can also relate that to your life today. Now you can't save a lot of money because you're spending it more, costs are getting higher. So savings fell, investments fell. They are usually falling at the same proportion. So that is the second model, which is investments. The third letter, G, this one I'm not going to discuss because G is exogenous, which means it's independent from our model. Whatever the government decides to spend is not under our control. At least not for me, because I'm not working in the government. I don't know if you or any person that's watching this may or may not work in the government, but it's going to be considered an exogenous variable. It's out of our control. And the last part that we would have, we already covered C, we already covered I, we already covered G. We're only looking at our trade balance that's next. So that means exports minus imports. And usually, as Y goes up, your imports are going to go up, and therefore your trade balance is going to decrease. Also, as interest rates go up, there are capital flows, and the exchange rate will appreciate, and this will decrease the trade balance. So how you could consider it is with the equation that I'm showing you, which includes the marginal propensity to import, as well as the sensitivity of trade to the interest rates. So these are the two variables that I was just discussing the effects in plain English, not in equation form, because the equation looks a little bit confusing. So now that we have all of these factors together, we can combine them into what we're going to call the IS curve. I don't know why it's called IS, but the important thing about this line is that every point in this line is going to be a point of equilibrium in the goods market. So this means that in every point of this line, the aggregate demand is going to equal the output. This is important because you have many possible equilibriums. But what may happen is that this IS curve may shift up or may shift down. This is also considered as a shift to the right or a shift to the left. So when is it going to be shifting? IS may shift to the right when government spending increases, when taxes decrease, or when individuals or businesses are more optimistic. And as Keynes said it's the animal spirit. You may start spending more just because you're optimistic. And as I mentioned in my recessions episode, confidence is so good for the economy that this may actually push the line a bit more. So if individuals or businesses are optimistic, they're going to increase consumption. Or investments as well. So all of these things would shift IS to the right. I'll summarize them again. Government spending increase, tax decrease, individual consumption increases, or business consumption increases. Now, if we look at the other market, the money market, we're going to have to look into two different things. First, the money demand, which is going to have this equation where K represents the sensitivity of the money demand to changes in income, and H represents the sensitivity to changes in the interest rate. So if we would translate this into plain English, it means that with increases in interest rates, the money demand is going to go down. But with more Y, which means more output, you're going to earn more, and so demand increases. Lastly, the other factor that's over here is this P, which is going to stand for prices, and so with higher prices, money demand is going to increase. So all of these factors are going to be affecting the money demand. And on the other hand, we would have the money supply. money supply is, if you watched The Money Heist, basically how much money is being printed out there. And money supplied is going to be determined by the central bank and no one else. Usually, the central banks are going to be independent from government, so even if a government says, I want more money, you won't get it. You have to go to the central bank, and the central bank is going to be filled with economists deciding what to do that's best for the people. So this is going to be, again, exogenous. Then, money demand and money supply together are going to lead us to the other line that is called LM curve. And again, LM, we don't know what it stands for, but it's the other type of curve that we need. It's going to be the money market equilibrium. And again, every point here is going to be a point for equilibrium in the money market, which means money supply, it's always going to equal money demand in every single point in these two lines. So there are only two ways of shifting the LM curve. The LM curve will shift to the right when the money supply goes up. So this is a decision from the central bank, or when prices go down. Even though we may find a rare situation, I'll mention it just in case, if money supply and prices change at the same time and in the same proportion, you'll get zero effects because they're going to be the opposite, and one is going to be the counter effect of the other. So LM is going to shift to the right either when money supply goes up or prices go down. But if you move money supply and prices in opposite ways in the same proportions, this is going to have zero effects. And this is going to be important for future episodes where I'll be talking about the effects of monetary policies. So now that we have the goods market and the money market, we can combine it into what is called the ISLM model. And this model is going to be where the economy finds its equilibrium. And so what I was telling you before is that every point in the IS is a point for equilibrium in the goods market. Every point in the LM curve is going to be an equilibrium for the money market, but the economy as a whole equilibrium, it's only going to be in the intersection, of course, because always in economics, if you're lost, the response is going to be the intersection. So intersection is always the optimal, and here, and specifically, it's going to be the only point where the economy as a whole is at an equilibrium. Next week, I'm going to wrap up all of my macroeconomic concepts into showing you what effects this fiscal policy and monetary policy have over the ISLM model. So be sure to check that episode out and also share it with friends that want to learn more about business. I'll see you next week.